So we're back. We are back with JWeis Marketing. JWeis Live is what we're calling it now. So JWeis Live. We've got Shawn McDonald back with us. Shawn.
Hey, Grant.
Stop doing that.
Sorry.
That's all right. You should have been prepared before the show started.
Well, I thought I would good last.
Well, that's true. I kind of threw this on you. My bad. And we're here with his. I would say your bosses. Can I say that?
I think that's really appropriate.
It is? Okay. So we're here with your bosses. So we talked a little bit about you guys the last show. Pheobe.
Correct?
And Amanda.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody, this is Pheobe and Amanda. Welcome. I'm glad to have you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
I asked Shawn, I said, I want to talk to the smart people in the company, in the firm. And so here I am. So that's why.
That's next episode.
Oh, that's next episode. Okay, all right. That's why I'm facing you guys, because I wanted to speak to the people that really the brains behind this mission. So
It's a good move on your part.
it was, wasn't it? Good. All right. So Shawn, tell us about these ladies. Tell us what's going on here.
So I'll start with Pheobe. I met Pheobe, I guess, a year and a half or two ago on the Sandra Bland committee when we were special prosecutors. And I don't think we've ever met. We passed in the courtroom quite a bit in Fort Bend County, and she was on the committee with me, and we just immediately hit it off. And I'd been asking her to come office with me for several months, maybe even close to a year. She kept denying me. And finally, I got her on board. I wore her out, and she finally came on board, and I guess a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, and we've been officing together since. And then recently, we had the opportunity to bring on Amanda, and she joined the firm about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she has just joined the firm with Pheobe and I, and we're getting her up to speed and getting her to go to work.
So what is the official name of the firm? Repeat that
It's
from last.
Smith McDonald Bolin.
Smith McDonald Bolin. So you got your name first.
Yeah. You know how that happened?
How'd that happen?
Well, I told Shawn we could either flip a coin or leg wrestle, and he picked leg wrestle.
Don't ever
There you
do that. Don't ever do that. The coin, at least you have a 50-50
I know.
opportunity, right? So Smith, McDonald, and Bolin. Okay. What was it about these two that intrigued you that you thought, I got to get with these ladies?
Pheobe, it was, we talked about on the first podcast, it's practicing criminal defense is a very lonely profession at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really met anybody that I was comfortable partnering up with and spending as much time together as you normally would until I met Pheobe. And it was, we just, you just kind of click.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an immediate connection. And I was like, okay, I need to bring her in. This kind of changes my outlook on the practice of law. I mean, that's what it boiled down to is I knew this could be much different than what I'd been doing up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew immediately. And she was very good in the committee, the Sandra Bland committee with organization, which is something that I'm not real strong in.
Okay.
So I knew that would be a good fit.
Okay.
And finally convinced her to come on board. And I think it's, at least for me, it's changed how I've practiced. It just brings a different level of joy that I never had before.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's been good.
Good.
That's been good.
All right.
And then Amanda, Pheobe and I have talked about her, and she's been a prosecutor, I think, for 12 or 13 years, and was the chief of the domestic violence division in the Fort Bend County DA's office. And she's the one that tries the big cases. I mean, she's the one that's front and center the last 2 or 3 years trying all the high-end murder and cases out of Fort Bend County. And she left the DA's office 4 weeks ago, and Pheobe and I discussed it, and we both were on board that, the trial experience that she has is unmatched.
Mm.
I mean, she tried more big cases in the Fort Bend County DA's office than any other prosecutor. And we knew having that in our office was something that we couldn't pass up on.
Good.
Yeah, so we build ourselves as trial attorneys. Pheobe and I both tried a lot of cases, and Amanda just brings a different level to our firm that puts us in a very good position to be leading in Fort Bend County.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll start with you. What was the initial attraction, I guess, when it came to joining up with Shawn?
When we were working in Sandra Bland, I just loved the fact that Shawn's just a leader, and so he was the one that sort of just stepped up and took the helm of that, and we worked. And And this is the funny part, because I know when we first sat down, he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they let a chick on here," because it was all guys.
Nice.
Not true.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
Nice. All right.
So, and we ended up, Shawn took the lead in presenting the case, and we worked together on doing, the technical aspects, like, creating PowerPoints and chopping up videos to be able to show
Right.
important stuff that we needed to the grand jury.
Right.
And so anyway, I just love this guy. He's funny. He's fun to be with. And I think that's one thing both of us look for is we want to have, it's a hard profession.
Sure.
It's heartbreaking sometimes.
Yeah.
And, to have we like to have fun.
I can tell. I mean, people haven't been watching, obviously, because we've started this whole process. But we've had a few drinks, we've had a few laughs, we've talked about some things probably we shouldn't have. But I can see that. I can see the camaraderie that you guys have, and it's really cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
There's nothing better than when you go to trial and you don't have to worry about what your co-counsel's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it. He's got your back. And you can just go.
Good. That's good. That's what we talked about previously. Is I know when he was discussing about being by himself and how much it's a challenge, of course, but it's kind of you lose that teamwork, that atmosphere. And he's sports. I've been in sports, and I that's one of the things I miss about it is going to war with people, and putting in the sacrifices and the efforts, and you miss that whenever you're not around it. So I know from what he was telling me, and I can tell from you guys, that it's having that teammate that you can trust, that that will be there for you and do the right thing. I know it's pretty valuable.
It's incredibly. It's just that teammate that you don't even have to think about.
Right. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And so, and this is kind of funny about Amanda, because I would say in Fort Bend County, there were probably maybe 3 or 4 prosecutors that I would have never underestimated. So this is one of them.
Okay.
So she is a formidable attorney.
Good.
And so adding her to our ranks is just, I just think it just takes us up one more notch.
Good. Well, we'll transfer then, I guess, to Amanda. So I guess what was your thought of these two, and how did you become where you were finally at the point where, all right, I want to do this?
I've known Shawn for a number of years, and it's always been in a position as an adversary.
Okay.
And it never failed that every case that I had with Shawn as a prosecutor would be that case that was a good case for him and a bad case for me. And I would tell him every time, the next one I get is going to be one where I'm going to have you, and I'm going to get you on the next one. And it never happened.
Yeah.
But every case that I had with him, we were always able to get along really well, discuss the case well, share information. And I think just about every case we had together, we were able to come up with a resolution without a trial, which is kind of unusual considering the high level of cases we had together.
Right.
And so I knew that Shawn was a former prosecutor. He left the DA's office, I think, just before I started working there.
Okay.
And as a prosecutor, you're kind of drawn to those defense attorneys that used to do what you're doing, because that they get it.
Right.
They understand where you're coming from. They understand what you're doing on your side, and it makes it easier to work together. It makes it easier to negotiate a case.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always respected him as a defense attorney because he was never trying to hide the ball from me. He laid it all out there, and if we didn't agree, we didn't agree. With Pheobe, I didn't handle quite as many cases, but the cases that I did work with Pheobe on, it was the same thing. I could tell she was working hard on her cases. She felt very strongly for her client, worked hard for her client, and again, never hid anything, which actually happens a lot in our profession, or at least the profession as a prosecutor.
Yeah.
So when that career ended for me, I knew I needed something that was still a team environment, because that's what I had had my entire career as a prosecutor. There was always a large office, always a second chair, always a colleague there to bounce ideas off of. And I couldn't think of better people to go do it with than those that I had admired from my viewpoint as a prosecutor.
So did you reach out to her, or did you reach out to him? How did that happen?
You know,
I don't know.
it
Actually,
was, we kind of knew after the election in November that my position was questionable,
Okay.
remaining in the DA's office. And so, and actually, my history with Shawn also goes back to the March primary when he ran for DA. And when the former DA announced that he was going to retire, I think within 24 hours, I called Shawn and told him, look, he's retiring. It's your time. You got to do this, because he was the first person in my mind that I believed should step up and take over that office.
Nice.
And so from there, I think is really when our relationship grew, where I was supporting him in his campaign. And so when November came and went, and it was a little questionable over whether I was staying in the office, we already kind of discussed a little, hey, do you have room? Because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in this office doing this work. And so, of course, it was the first thing that came to mind when I did learn that I wouldn't be staying there.
So was that even, did she get the DA's office opportunity on your radar, or had you already thought about it? Like, would she initiate that, when bringing that up and go, you know what, man, maybe I should do it, or had you already thought about doing that?
I had thought about it. I mean, I knew when he was retiring that it was, I immediately knew it's something I needed to consider.
Okay.
So, and then I started bouncing things off of people I trusted and that were, the higher levels in the DA's office, to see if it's something that could garner their support, because I didn't know if they were going to run.
Okay.
I mean, Amanda and I had the discussion whether she was going to run, and a couple other friends of mine who were chiefs in the division, whether they were going to run, because I had enough respect for them that I wasn't going to run if they were.
Okay.
I wasn't going to run against people that I highly respected and that were really good friends of mine.
Well, that's good. Does that happen a lot? And as far as attorney relationships, and when it comes to mutual respect, I mean, does that happen often? Is it rare that if you don't have it, like, how does that work for you in your experience, working trials and cases?
I guess you watch other people and you learn how they work, and I respect hard work. I respect people that build their case and know their case, and as a defense attorney, and I've always been a defense attorney. I've never prosecuted, so other than the instance,
right?
So as a special prosecutor, so I think it's important. I mean, just as a prosecutor would know, who works and who doesn't.
Okay.
And who's going to fold at the end. And my goal has always been, and I don't see this changing, is that, I want to be that person in the courtroom that knows more about that case than any other person.
Okay.
Because then that's the center of control.
Sure. Right. Okay. Because when y'all are talking and y'all are communicating about, there's obviously a level of respect that y'all had before you got together. And so I just wonder, that's why I asked that question, if it is kind of common across the profession that you have attorneys that have that respect for each other, or if it's rare.
I think in criminal law, it occurs actually a lot more than other areas in my experience.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's just because we all realize that we have a job to do, and we might not, Shawn may have a client if I, as a prosecutor, just really despise. I understand that he doesn't like that person, but he's got a duty to represent them.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what I have seen with civil law and with family court, you don't see the same type of camaraderie and respect among the attorneys that you do in criminal.
Okay.
But I think also part of it is that it's kind of a small community, at least in Fort Bend County, and everyone that regularly practices criminal law, whether prosecutor or defense attorney, pretty much knows each other. And so since we are a small community, we tend to be, I think, a tighter knit group and a little more civil with each other than the other areas.
I got you. That makes sense. And
civil attorneys, there's so many of them. They may not come across each other very often, but like Amanda was saying, it's just, I refer to it probably as a small trough. And so, we don't, I would hope that most of the time we don't treat each other as harshly as what I've seen civil attorneys do to each other. There's always going to be people that you respect more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But you also know that you might not respect that person, but you may have another case with them.
I got you.
So,
from what I've seen, it's the, now of course this is in I guess an entertainment environment, but you hear it also too, where you say, I'll owe you one. I mean, do you have a lot of that environment where you say, hey, you owe me one for whatever the last one? I mean, does that happen a lot in your relationships with other attorneys? Like, I'm doing you a favor, I expect one the next time.
I've never really looked at it like that, because it's, for the most part, we always come to a mutual agreement. It's not like they're doing me a favor. I know that if I get a deal that I think is a good deal, I think it's warranted. I've never thought of as a prosecutor like, oh, I just did you a favor and I expect something in return.
Okay.
It just, I don't know, for me, that just kind of feels dirty.
Okay.
In a way.
All right.
Just because it's you're dealing with people's lives.
Sure.
And this whole, I'll give you a favor type of thing. I've never really thought of it like that. It's always been sometimes you can reach an agreement, and sometimes they believe in what you're saying and they buy into your request, and sometimes they don't. And that's, something that it's a level of trust that, they're she has a different perspective on a case because she's a prosecutor just from the outset.
Right.
Than I do as a defense attorney. She doesn't deal with my client. She doesn't know his life story and his abusive childhood and his abusive parents. And, so I have a relationship with him that she'll never have, but she's still trying to weigh the interest of the state with my interest in trying to convey the issues with my client and some sympathy why he deserves, a better deal. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, but it's never been I did you a favor.
Okay.
She's made me good offers on cases that were warranted, and she's made me offers on cases that I thought were, in my mind, unreasonable. But in the end of the day, that's just what we do. It's an adversarial process.
Do you say that? Will you say what you're asking me is unreasonable?
Absolutely. All the time.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm like, your offer's too much. We're not taking that. Get out of here with that.
It's more like, have you lost your mind?
Yeah, if you lost your mind, you can't prove this case. Or my big thing in the courthouse with every prosecutor I deal with, and if I know them well enough and we have that mutual respect, is I'll find a case that is good for me and I'll tell them I'm going to kick your ass.
Okay.
And it's and I've told her that I'm going to kick, and that's what she was saying is
Multiple
we've had cases that every single one of them is a good case for me. And so she's never really came at me with, hey, I'm offering you 30 years. It's never happened, but and we joked about it because we knew at some point it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And every time I'm like, I got another one, I'm going to kick your ass. She's like, damn it, again?
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, not for you, I guess, but that's good for you that you get those kind of deals. But hey, now you're on the other side, so it doesn't matter,
Well,
right?
and I think as you mature as a prosecutor, you start to come around to it's not just about winning. It's not just about a conviction. And the most recent case I think that Shawn and I handled before I left was a difficult offer for me to make. It took some time.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was over with, it clearly was the most just outcome in the case. And it was the right thing to do for that particular client. It just took me a little bit of time to get there.
Difficult as far as accepting that that's what the end result would be?
Just accepting that on such a serious crime, reaching an agreement that most people, without knowing all of the details about the case, would not understand why we were reaching that agreement.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense. All right. You know what? I don't really need you anymore. I mean, you can stay on if you want to, because you're fantastic. But I want to talk to the brains of this organization. Perfect. And see what see where these ladies are coming from. So I guess we'll do that next. We'll get into I guess a little personal, as personal I guess as you want to get, but just to learn a little bit about you two and how you guys got to this part, because this is the part I love. I like to hear the backstory. How people get to the point where they want to pursue this, because I mean it's definitely a commitment to do this, and commitment in school, commitment in life, commitment in a lot of things, and so I definitely want to get to that. So Shawn, stay over there and be quiet. It's the girl's turn now. And I got to tell you, I think it's fantastic that Shawn got him 2 women to do this, because I've got 2 daughters. Of course, I have a wife. I have a sister. I like to see women in positions like what you're talking about, what you girls do, you women do, ladies, girls. I don't think y'all care. Okay. That my girls can look at and say, because they do. I mean, I'm a boy's boy. I mean, I played sports. I did all the boys stuff. And so when I found out I was having girls, it was I don't know, it was tough because I'm used to the boys stuff, you know, throwing around a ball and all the, you know, being rough and all that stuff. And when I found out I had 2 girls, it was a it was going to be a challenge, at least I thought it was for me. But when I see them grow up and I see them reference women and look what she's doing, because I'd never thought of it that way, and that's my bad for not thinking that. But when I see them reference girls and women and watch stuff and go, oh, that's so awesome that she's doing that. You see she's doing that. I want to do that. Like, so from that standpoint, for me and my daughters, I think it's awesome when I see ladies like y'all doing this kind of thing. Do you feel that at all? Like, how do you feel being in a position that you are, especially nowadays in the environment that we have, being women, doing what you're doing? I mean, do you feel a duty for that? Do you feel like I'm just doing my job? Like, what's your I know I'm taking on a different route. We're going to go this way, but I was thinking about that and wanted to ask.
I think that it's always important to be able, when you're a little girl, you need to be able to see people, and you need to be able to see yourself through other women doing things that may not be, may not be anything you ever do, but to know that you have the potential to do that right. Avenue is not ever cut off for you, that the world is open for you.
Yes.
And that's a huge difference than 10 years ago or
sure.
20 years ago.
Sure.
So, I'm absolutely happy to be in a position and very grateful to be in a position that I hope that other, even if they don't follow in my footsteps, at
sure.
least they know,
sure.
hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
There's no rule saying that because you're a girl you can't.
Right.
Because you're a girl you can't do math. Because you're a girl you can't do science. No.
Right.
That
right.
just doesn't. Those barriers need to go away.
Sure. Amanda, what's your stance on that?
I totally agree. Growing up, I remember writing a research paper about Sandra Day O'Connor and thinking, hey, if that's a woman who's on the Supreme Court,
right,
I can do that.
Right.
And having other role models that do what we do growing up. And I have 2 daughters myself, and so I certainly want to set an example for them to be able to go and do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in other positions doing other jobs where it's typical as far as it's male dominant industry, and I'm talking about working on cars. And I just always got really excited when a woman would walk in my office and say, I'm here for a job. And it was awesome. Like, I thought it was fantastic. And I just kudos to Shawn, for you lady. I'm glad that I'm glad that this is happening. So I'm glad that you ladies are there for my daughters.
Well, thanks.
To see what they can do. That's awesome. So I guess to start that, Pheobe, kind of tell us, you were talking about it and saying as you were growing up, and Amanda was too, what got you to this point in your life where you are where you are?
Well, I grew up in a really small town in East Texas.
Okay. What was the town?
Lindale, Texas.
I know where Lindale is.
Do you really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. You and
Well, I've been in high school athletics and sports, and so as you're doing high school athletics and sports in Texas, you just hear about these little small towns scattered all over the place. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, when I was there, it was small. Now it's not so much. It's not so small now. It's now there's like famous people coming from there, so it's kind of
all right.
It's kind of funny. But yeah, my parents owned a drugstore in Lindale, and I grew up working in the drugstore, and knew immediately that I did not want to be a pharmacist, so that was kind of easy. And I think my dad sort of pushed me towards law for a while, and then of course, I had to push back because I'm the middle child. So but I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and
Welcome.
Yep, and probably went through one major a year there for a while. But it's kind of funny because I look back and I kind of, see that things kind of built on each other.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: what was your first initial? You said I was initially not interested in law. Like, what was it about it that you weren't? That wasn't your dad was wanting you to do it, but you weren't.
I don't think I really knew what being a lawyer was, quite frankly. I mean, we didn't know any lawyers growing up, and So, it was more like just saying the words, well, I want to be a lawyer. Well, secretly, I have no idea what that means.
I got you. Okay.
And after I got through college, I think I probably thought, I thought I wanted to be in academia, but I quickly figured out that wasn't for me either.
Yeah.
So,
what was your major at UT?
well, let's see. I started off with drama education.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And ended up getting a degree in sociology.
Okay.
So,
All right.
which, I when I talk to other lawyers, it's funny because I always think that as trial lawyers, we probably have more in common with stage actors, certainly than we do with,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, than tax attorneys.
Sure.
I mean, what we do is about communication.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot more to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and probably sociology probably kicked in. I used to do some capital cases, and, as far as like understanding mitigating evidence, understanding, the differences in growing up, black and poor in a small East Texas town versus,
Yeah, right.
so.
Okay. So besides being at UT and just being awesome, because UT's awesome, what was the hey, hook 'em. What was the progression for you to say, okay, I want to go to law school and do that?
I graduated and, immediately thought I was going to get that big money job, and that just didn't happen. So, and my dad patiently was sitting back going, well, maybe you should think about law school again. So
Good old dad there.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I started working on my master's in sociology.
Okay.
And like I said, it kind of came to me that academia was not going to be where
Okay.
I needed to be.
Okay.
And so moved to Houston, worked for a friend's mom for a while, and then decided that I wanted to go back to school. And
Okay.
so I went to law school.
Okay. What was the final straw where you said, okay, I'm going to listen to dad and do the law school? What was it? What do you think?
I think it was realizing that if I wanted to give, if I wanted to feel like I was making a contribution,
Right.
it was, for me, it wasn't going to be, working for a computer company or at a hotel or a couple of the other jobs I had when I first moved to Houston. So,
Okay.
and I mean, I like people, and make those connections, and that's what we do when you represent somebody.
Sure.
You form a relationship and you connect with them, and
Right. Did you want to do criminal defense right, like when you got in it and you were about to get out? Did you say, this is what I'm going to do?
No,
No?
I had no idea. In fact, I clerked for Shell tax law, and I immediately knocked that off the list as things I wanted to do.
Okay.
So,
So you're talking about Shell, the oil and gas?
yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, downtown.
So corporate.
Corporate,
Okay.
right.
All right.
So I knew I didn't want to do that, and then a friend of mine had been a probation officer out in Fort Bend County, and she was like, "Well, let's go see if we can get an appointment out there. Let's go see if we can represent people."
Okay.
And at that time, that was prior to some legislation that changed a lot of things. But at that time, a judge would look out and he would see some new lawyers, and he would just basically call you down to the front and say, "Well, would you like to represent this person?" And then of course they start off with small, misdemeanor type cases and so forth. So I started doing that, and quickly realized that I needed more education and I needed to know what I was doing. And that's one thing I would say about the criminal defense bar is that they're very giving as far as if you are looking to learn more, it's there. They'll support you.
Specifically for defense? So like you have a different bar that you go through for that?
Well, the bar's kind of divided up into the different parts of
Okay.
things you do. So there is a criminal defense bar that operates and supports each other sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes more than others, but
Okay.
for me, what they did, there was somebody that basically said, "Look, you ought to go to this, a trial practice institute, so you can learn, you can practice trying a case. And so these schools are set up so they give you a mock case and you actually try them.
All right.
And it kind of helps you grow your confidence a little bit. Whereas these guys were prosecutors, they were thrown in and they were trying cases, from the get-go. It takes, I would say as a defense attorney, it takes a little bit longer to get a case to go to trial.
Do you, looking back on it now, do you wish you would have done a prosecution route just so you could have that trial experience like that?
Not really.
Okay.
Like I said, I think I was really pretty lucky. And it was education that I sought too, but I went to a trial practice institute in Texas, and then someone said, hey, there's a national school to go to, and I did that. And then I applied to go to the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College, and was accepted to that. And I spent a month in Wyoming, with some really great lawyers and kind of honing your skills and learning other things. And it gives you confidence, and to a certain extent, it gives you some street cred when you go back to your county. And,
sure.
And
I'm a big Jerry Spence fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
Jerry's a good guy.
He's a. Have you met him personally?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Very cool.
We all lived together for 30 days. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is that environment like? What are you doing?
He's deeded this ranch to the Trial Lawyers Institute, but he had a ranch, and it was in DuBois, Wyoming.
Okay.
And the funny thing was, I had no clue what I was getting into. I thought it was just going to be like a regular trial practice where they give you the case and all this, but it was a completely different type thing. I mean, we're getting off the plane in Jackson, Wyoming. You get on this little bus, and you go up to DuBois, and I was talking to some people. I didn't know anybody there, so I was talking. They basically they get applications and they sort through, and they take like 30 lawyers a summer. So so I was talking to this one lawyer, and she goes, do you know what this is? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a trial practice thing. She goes, it's like an encounter group. And I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but it doesn't sound good.
That's right. When you have that kind of warning voice like that, you're like, this isn't going to be fun. Yeah.
But so there's a huge barn that everybody lives in. I mean, it's like a dorm,
Okay.
And
band camp. Just
exactly.
like band camp,
It's
right?
band camp.
Absolutely. Okay. All right.
It's band camp.
Well, good.
But he brings in, because of who he is, he brings in
Sure.
really talented lawyers from across the country. And actually, I was very proud that there were a lot of them from Houston. Racehorse Haynes was there when I was there.
Wow.
And these people give their time and watch you practice, all the skills, cross, direct, opening statements, and critique you and help you. And so it's just really an invaluable experience. And they break you down into like small groups, and Jerry was the leader of one of my groups. So it was a good experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know a ton about Jerry Spence, but I do know the name Jerry Spence. I know I shared with Shawn. I was kind of trying to go the route that you guys went at a certain point in my life, and it didn't happen. But I know he was one of the ones that I knew about and had learned a little bit about. I mean, he's like one of the most famous trial attorneys in the United States, isn't he? Right? Yes. I mean, that guy's really well known. So when you left that place, when you look back on after that, you said 30 days, right? Mm-hmm. After 30 days, were you just like, wow, I'm ready to go kick some ass now? I mean, were you on fire after you left there?
Yes, definitely. In fact, I came back, and I think within 2 weeks, I had, I think it was my second, it was a sexual assault of a child case, mm-hmm. and won it, and,
right.
just, I mean, a lot of it's just the confidence you feel, you
right.
know, and
yeah,
and you feel, kind of that some of that is bestowed upon you by good lawyers, and that
right.
You've been selected, so maybe you make
right.
Maybe you can learn a thing or two or do a thing or two.
Well, then you're like, I'm leaving. I don't want to let these guys down. Like, they spent and invested all this time with me, and I don't want to go spit the bit. Like, I want to do what I got to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing the atmosphere that he creates. I mean, within 30 days, you feel like you've formed another family.
That's good.
And I mean, it's the closing ceremony and everybody's in tears. You feel like you're being
Oh,
torn
wow.
from your family. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, I didn't know that there were places like that as far as to go, I guess, further your education. I mean, to do that
To
because
get hands-on skills.
yeah, well, that's really good. I didn't know there was anything like. So you didn't say, where did you go to law school?
Thurgood Marshall here in Houston.
Okay, so that's Texas Southern, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
What was your experience like at Texas Southern?
It was good, but I didn't feel like I knew enough in terms of trial work. And I mean, that's something, I mean, they call it a practice for a reason, you know, there's always things to learn
Sure.
in that realm. So that's no slight to TSU. It's just always, you always have to add to, you know, your arsenal or your foundation.
Well, and I think Sean even mentioned, correct. I think Sean had said that those years of law school just really prepare you to pass the bar, pretty much.
Yep.
Is what that does.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into it, you, like you did, I guess, you just like, I don't know what to do now other than pass the bar. So I guess I got to go get either is it like that? If you want to do trial, you just say, I'm either going to be a prosecutor or I'm going to further my education more.
I think probably deciding what you're going to do is fairly personality driven.
Yeah.
If you know, if you're attracted to trial work, then there's probably a little bit of you that wants to be. I mean, there has to be part of you that wants to be on that stage.
Sure.
You know. And if of course, if that's something that you abhor, then you ought to go back to, you know, Shell and do tax law. So
I can't imagine. I can't imagine doing that. I mean, Sean and I talked about that as far as, because he and I were kind of the same in how we got into criminal justice. I guess maybe I was because they had a really cool elective class. But I tried to do the business, the accounting, all that stuff. And I took my first accounting class and said, I'm out of here.
It's like my brain does not work that way.
Right.
So.
This is definitely not for me. So after you've done this long enough, as far as defense, like, do you feel like, I guess obviously you have. I know this is a dumb question. Just like those people that go to athletes after games and like, so you won the game. Are you really excited? And you're like, well, yeah, we just won a game. But I mean, after you've done this venture and you've gotten to this point, are you aware that are you liking where you're at? Not just like professionally as far as being involved in this team, but just like, do you look back and go, I definitely made the right steps and I'm definitely made the right decision? And
yes. And I don't know if that was always me making the right choices or just, you know, some form of grace looking after me and helping me along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know I think what's really great about our profession is that growth is always there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can always grow in terms of skills, in terms of what we're doing. You know, I mean, we're growing what's going to be the most formidable firm in Fort Bend County.
Yeah.
So,
well, good.
And that feels great. That feels great knowing that I've got these two that, you know, not only can I depend on their knowledge, but we go to trial.
Yeah.
It's the other side that better look out.
I like that. That's good. I like that. I like that attitude. I don't know if I want to interview you anymore. I don't want to hear about all the whooping and all that stuff. That stuff doesn't interest me.
Whooping, that's like a spanking. It's not the same.
Well, see, I got to say, one of my good friends is an Aggie, and I just...
Probably a spectacular guy, huh?
Oh, God.
I was about to say, I was sorry I was.
Yeah. No, it's... I tell him, I say, look, that's great that you love your university. That's awesome, fantastic. But, I mean, don't talk about it every day, all day. I don't want to hear it every day. And, like, every time I see him, we talk about the Aggies. And I say, I don't want to hear about the Aggies right now, Danny. I don't want to talk about them. Can we talk about something else?
Sounds like maybe a little jealous.
No, it has... believe me, that has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. Now the shirt makes sense. Now the shirt makes sense. I was just like, oh, she likes that color.
Yeah.
Now it's that. And I hate it.
Wow.
No, I don't. I'm just joking. One thing I didn't get into with you, I didn't get into any family You didn't go into personal. So tell us a little bit about your personal self, your family, that kind of thing.
I have 7 kids, and
Wow. Did you see the look on my face? I was just like, oh my gosh. How do I respond to that? Do I say, I'm
And
sorry, or do I say?
I live off the grid in Idaho. I just fly in.
That's
every now
right.
and then.
That's right. That's right.
No, actually, I'm gay. I've lived with the same person for 35 years.
Wow.
So
Good for you.
Yeah. Actually, we've been together even pre-law school and pre-medical school and all that other stuff. So
That is fantastic.
So we've been together a long time. No kids, but I
Yeah.
do have 2 pugs.
Okay.
So that kind of works.
What are the pugs'
So,
names?
Harper Lee Pork Chop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's one name.
That's one name. Yeah. That was a compromise.
Okay.
So,
All right. Good.
and then the other one is Raisin,
Raisin.
because Raisin only has one eye. She has a raisin eye. So she
Oh,
was an adopted
nice.
pug. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right. How long have you had them? Did you say?
I've had Harper for 13 years and Raisin for 12. So they're
Wow.
older.
Very
So,
good. All right. So what does your better half do?
She's an OB-GYN.
Oh wow.
So, yeah. So
Y'all got a very, very successful couple. That's awesome.
well, it's thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So, anything else you want to share as far as any of your personal background, any information that you wanna get out there to people so they know a little bit more about Pheobe?
I'm kind of an open book. If you want to ask, I'll tell you. But,
Okay.
but
Well, I'm sure as we do this more and more, there's going to be those times
Sure.
when we do that. But the purpose of this is just to have people get to know you a little bit. We almost named our second daughter Pheobe, by the way.
Oh, did you?
My wife really liked that name, but we didn't. We didn't name her Pheobe, but we almost did. So
counts.
at least take that. Right. That's right. So we'll talk to Amanda now. She's in that ugly shirt that she's wearing. And she'll tell us here in a little bit why I said that, but no, it's that sibling rivalry, right? I mean, it's A&M wishes they were UT. That's okay. It's okay to have something to look up to. We all have that.
I'm just going to take a stab here. That you didn't actually go to UT, did you?
Oh.
Because it's always the biggest fans who didn't even go there.
Well, you're right. I didn't go there.
See?
That was
time.
yeah. I didn't go there because I had other opportunities other places. So I played basketball, and so I didn't
There
get an
you go.
opportunity to go there. I would have loved to have gone there, but I've had family. We're a UT family. So yeah, yep.
How do you feel about the Cowboys?
That's another show. We'll get
Okay.
into.
Okay.
Yeah. Why?
Because I love them.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Oh, we're good.
We're good.
We're good. Okay.
We're on the same page. Okay. So see, it's not all the way. Hey, give me.
Okay.
So it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Common ground.
At least you like the Cowboys. So
I do.
And we can do that. We can talk about the Cowboys
Okay.
anytime you want to. Right now we're going to talk about you though.
Okay.
So Amanda, tell us where you're from. Tell us about you.
I don't think I really have a place that I'm from. My dad was in the Air Force, and
okay.
I was actually born on an Air Force base in Maine.
Wow.
And moved around with the Air Force. And then when my dad got out of the Air Force, he became a petroleum engineer, which meant even more traveling. And so I actually spent most of my childhood outside of the United States and came back to the U.S. when I was a junior in high school to a lovely, lovely little area in the panhandle of Texas.
Where?
We lived in Borger.
Where's Borger by? I've heard it. I don't know what it's by.
About an hour and a half north of Amarillo.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, lovely area.
Yeah.
And so I spent a year and a half there and finished high school, which was a huge culture shock, having been in international schools overseas from 3rd grade through 11th grade.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated from high school, I wanted to get far away from the panhandle of Texas. And I decided to go to Texas A&M. Really not knowing what I was getting myself into, to be honest with you.
You didn't know you were joining a cult? You didn't know that?
I
Okay.
didn't. And
All right.
they brainwashed me from the get-go.
They do a great job of that. They do a fantastic job of that.
And I loved my time there. And one of the greatest things that I did while I was there was taking part in the A&M mock trial team.
Okay.
which usually you don't see that kind of thing until law school.
Yeah, right.
But there are a number of undergraduate universities that have mock trial teams.
Very good.
So I became part of that and quickly realized this is really cool. This is what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to do. And so from A&M, I went to Baylor Law School, just
Okay.
up the road,
All right.
which there was kind of two reasons for that decision. One, they offered me a full tuition scholarship,
Jeez.
and so I couldn't really turn that down.
No.
And Baylor is actually different than what most law schools in Texas are like. I know Shawn and Phoebe mentioned a little bit that, you know, you go to law school, they help you pass the bar, and then you figure out what you're doing after that,
Mhm.
right? Baylor's actually not really like that. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to go there, because in your third year at Baylor Law School, you go through a pretty difficult program called practice court. That while other third year law students at other law schools are kind of taking it easy in their third year and coasting, and it is intense and stressful and hard and at times tearful to go through that program, because it is basically exactly what it says, practice court. You are given cases, you go through every step of a trial where you have professors in your face telling you that that was a really stupid idea, start over, do it again, or, you know, I can't believe you made that argument, and your closing argument, go home tonight and write me a paper about why that was against the rules of evidence, and, you know, that kind of thing. So very, very intense. But I walked away saying, I could walk into a courtroom right now and try a case if I needed to, because I'd gotten that training at Baylor.
So Phoebe and Shawn had it easy in law school, is what you're saying.
I think so. In
That's what it
fact,
sounds like.
I actually almost went to UT, and what made the difference for me to UT's law school is that I went for a new student orientation, and they kind of gave the spiel about this is what we do at UT, this is how it works, and you're going to learn what you need to know to take the bar, and you'll figure out how to practice law when you get out. And then when I went to an orientation at Baylor, they told us all about this practice court program, and they said, you're going to be ready to practice law when you leave here. And I thought, well, why on earth am I going to spend time and money in 3 years of all of this if I'm not going to know how to practice law when I leave here?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I don't know if it would have been an option without the full tuition scholarship, but I'm glad Baylor is where I went. From Baylor, it took a little bit of an unusual turn, and that is because while I was in law school, I got married to my husband, Brandon, and he did not want to go to Waco. And I convinced him to come to Waco, let me get through law school, and then we'll go wherever you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have been more specific and kept that within the confines of the state of Texas, since that's where I was going to law school and taking the Texas bar.
Yeah.
And he got a great job in the state of Florida while I was still in law school. So I went ahead and took the Texas bar exam, and then loaded up my car, my dog, and drove to Florida and took the bar exam in Florida and started my prosecuting career there with the state attorney's office in the 10th Judicial District, which is kind of right in between Tampa and Orlando. So I did 2 years prosecuting there, and then my oldest daughter, Kaylee, was born, and we wanted to be back with family. All of our family, in the meantime, was here in the Houston area with oil and gas.
Okay.
And so I got a job with the Fort Bend County DA's office, came back here and so I did 2 years in Florida prosecuting, and then 12 years here in Fort Bend County prosecuting.
Okay.
And about halfway through my career prosecuting in Fort Bend, my husband had been working in banking and finance that whole time. That's the job that took him to Florida. It was the job he held here in Texas when we came back. And I had been coming home every night telling him all these great stories about being a prosecutor and my cases and how cool it was.
Yeah.
And he came home one day and said, I'm tired of the corporate stuff. I'm tired of chasing a commission check. The stuff you do is really cool. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to police academy. And
Wow.
I laughed because I thought it could not have been true. But he was absolutely serious, and that's exactly what he did. We downsized our house. We sold a car. We had one kid at the time, and we carpooled because the police academy is across from the courthouse. And he went through academy. Now he's a sergeant with the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office. Wow. That's quite a career decision to go from doing that to being a cop. Yeah, I think he needed to be nearing age 35 before he could actually like grow up and figure out what he wanted to do with himself. Yeah. But he found it. It's a perfect job for him. Many people think that he's been doing it for decades because of how good he is at it. Yeah. It just took him a little while to figure out what he wanted to do.
So a lot of questions I had while you were talking. So how is it going from doing a state bar in Texas to in all your preparations at Baylor and all that to doing the Florida state bar?
It kind of depends on where you go. So Texas is actually one of the hardest bar exams in the country. I've heard only California and New York can compare to how difficult they are.
Okay.
Many states offer what they call reciprocity, meaning if you've practiced for a while in one state, you can just be admitted into another state's practice. Florida, however, it doesn't matter how long you have practiced law somewhere else. If you come to Florida and you want to be licensed in Florida, you take the bar exam. Absolutely no reciprocity. And so there was about 7 months or so between the time that I took the Texas bar and the Florida bar, so I had to take the whole thing, and it was a lot easier, a whole lot easier.
Wow.
Than Texas. And I actually studied while I was working part-time kind of as an intern for the state attorney's office there, which is the prosecuting office.
Yeah.
Actually had the highest score in the region. And I think part of that was because I had practiced for and trained for and studied for the Texas bar.
That's awesome.
And it translated pretty easy to Florida. But sitting right next to me was a man who had practiced law in New York for 40 years and was retiring to Florida.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be able to, practice a little law on the side in Florida. And it didn't matter that he had practiced for 40 years in New York. He was taking the Florida bar exam just like I was.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I guess and this is a dumb question, but every state has a different format to their bar. Am I right? I mean, different questions, different
Right.
scenario. Like, I don't know anything about it, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, Texas is a 3-day exam, actually. So there's the first day is Texas specific. The second day is a multi-state test. And then the third day is you write 12 essays based on Texas law.
Jeez.
Right. And so that middle day, the multi-state exam, I had to take that exam over again in Florida because they administer that as well. And then they had a 1-day Florida only testing that was a lot easier than the Texas only testing. And I actually got the exact same score on the multi-state exam in Texas that I did in Florida.
So are they the same kind of questions, or is it?
The multi-state is the same.
The same,
It's
okay.
like a standardized across the board in
Okay.
various states that it's given.
Okay.
The Texas essays on the third day, I, for me at least, I found that to be the hardest part because you're given a question and you're basically writing a paper, and you have to do 12 of them in one day. In Florida, I found their questions to be a little more like a first-year law exam type question, where you just regurgitate all the knowledge you can come up with in an answer.
So it sounds like if you pass the state bar, you feel pretty accomplished.
In Texas, I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to write that many essays and the test, I'm no good at test period for 1 day and 30 minutes. I can't imagine taking a test over 3 days.
Yes.
It gives me tired head.
Well, and one of the questions on my essays, at least, was an oil and gas question. And of course, my father being a petroleum engineer, you would think I would have wonderful answers and all kinds of knowledge. I completely left it blank because I didn't want to waste my time with 0 points worth of knowledge. It was better to move on and answer the other questions with knowledge. Of course, I'm sorely disappointing my father.
So you told him you didn't answer anything?
I did. He was already disappointed because he's an engineer. He wanted kids that were an engineer, and he would frequently tell me, God, not only am I having a kid that's an Aggie, but I'm having a kid that's an Aggie lawyer.
So your dad was against the Aggie thing.
My dad is a graduate of University of Arkansas and is a diehard Razorback. So yes,
okay.
The fact that I went to Texas A&M was difficult for him to swallow. And then my little brother followed in my footsteps and went to Texas
Oh, so you
A&M
corrupted
as
the
well.
entire family.
I did.
Basically,
Mhm.
you corrupted the family.
Yes.
I
He
mean-
still calls me the Aggie lawyer in the family. Mhm.
Really?
Yes, he does.
Good for him. Good for him. So, A&M, did you have the intention when you got into that class at A&M, the trial class you're talking about, did you have the intention of, I'm going to figure this out and see if I want to be an attorney, or did you just kind of get into it and you're like, oh, this is cool, I want to pursue this further?
No, I knew from a young age, watching TV shows with criminal cases and courtrooms on TV, that I wanted to be a lawyer. And the program at A&M was actually an extracurricular activity. It wasn't even a class that I got credit for. It was like a club, basically, the mock trial team was. So I knew when I started at A&M, I wanted to go through the path that would help me get into law school. And then being in mock trial helped me realize, well, when I get to law school, this is what I want to focus on, is being a trial lawyer. Then I got to law school and I was like, maybe I should find what's going to like make some money. And I took those classes and they were just really boring, and did a clerkship with a insurance defense firm downtown Houston, and it was miserable. And I just from there was like, this is silly. You know, I need to do what I love versus finding something that will be miserable and that I make money at.
Well, and I would assume, Phoebe, with you and with you, Amanda, with tax and with that, it's just a lot of research, right? I mean, that's just all you're doing is just a ton of research all day long, just doing that, right?
Well, I made a lot of copies.
A lot of copies?
It was all research for me, and I knew it would be decades before I'd see a courtroom and be able to litigate and actually argue for a client, which is what, you know, before you go to law school, that's what you think that being a lawyer is about,
Sure.
is being in the courtroom, arguing for a client, fighting for your position. And you work for a firm like insurance defense or you do tax law, you're not going to be in a courtroom.
Just being, I mean, that's the one thing when I thought about doing this, is because I was kind of on that path where I wanted to do it, and it was just, I just imagine that just research, just constant. Well, and I was thinking more like on the corporate side. I guess I wasn't really thinking the criminal side, but I know you do research on criminal too. But I just imagine just in your face and head in a book when you're doing that kind of law, like tax and insurance. You're just constantly doing that all the time.
Yeah. I like doing research. I do a lot of it with what we do, but I don't want it to be all that I do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it's very rare that you're in a trial in front of a jury. You're just doing that all the time. Either that, or I would assume you're sitting in a mediation and settling that way, and you're not ever in a trial.
Right.
So you've gone this route, A&M, then you went to Baylor. So you just wanted to you wanted specifically to be a prosecutor. You're like,
Yes.
this is what I want to do.
My third year in law school, I took a federal sentencing class, and that was what sealed the deal for me, because that professor was a former prosecutor. And talking to him and hearing his war stories about his time as a prosecutor, I knew that absolutely was what I had to go do.
Okay. All right. So let's forget Florida.
Okay.
You came here at Fort Bend. So tell us about your experience in Fort Bend. If you have a story about Florida and you want to share it with us, that's fantastic. I'd love to hear it. But
No, my time there was short. I mean,
Yeah.
I would consider myself a baby prosecutor there, kind of learning the ropes. And when I came to Fort Bend County and asked Mr. Healy to hire me in, I knew it would be sort of starting over and starting as a baby prosecutor again, which was fine with me.
okay.
And I had to adjust a little bit to getting back to Texas law versus Florida law.
Right.
But I took a traditional path through the prosecutor's office. I began as a misdemeanor prosecutor, where I handled mostly DWIs, possession of marijuana, shoplifting cases. Did that for almost a year until I moved into the grand jury division, which is reviewing cases as they come in for felony charges to determine if we want to move forward with them and present them to the grand jury, which is typically a 6-month rotation. So I did that. And from there, I became a general felony prosecutor and did that for about 7 years in various courts, just handling a wide variety of felony charges. And that's where most of my trial experience came from, was my time as a general felony prosecutor.
Okay.
From there, I wanted to do something a little more specialized. And so after asking a number of times, I finally was able to move to the gang and narcotics division. Because
There you go.
Yeah, I had gotten a real interest in my time in general felony and the gang cases and the gang problem that's in our area,
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't realize is going on in Fort Bend County. And so I wanted to handle those cases. Then I had an opportunity after doing that for a few years to be promoted to a chief position within the office, and that was of the family violence division, which I did from 2015 until the end of last year. That was a little bit more administrative and supervisory, where I was handling cases, but I was really supervising all of the other prosecutors handling
Okay.
the majority of the cases. But the one thing that was great about that position is that I personally handled every single homicide that came in that was family violence related, which is actually the great majority of homicides that happen in Fort Bend County are family related.
Yeah.
And so those cases are some of the ones that I'm proudest of, because it often involves one spouse killing or trying to kill their spouse. And so Actually, the case I was talking about earlier where Shawn and I worked together, and then Pheobe actually came onto that case as well towards the end, was a family violence homicide case where 3 children, grown children, were charged with murdering their mother's boyfriend. So anything that was family related, that was a homicide or anything high profile, we had a couple professional athletes charged with some domestic violence charges that I handled those. I got to personally handle those and supervise other prosecutors and teach them and try to grow them up to be more mature prosecutors, which I love doing.
You have that, then you go to the election happens and see the writing on the wall and you connect up. So I know it's been short as far as what you've been doing, but how's it been for you so far?
You know, I have the knowledge and the experience in criminal law. That part's going to be easy to make the switch over. I think the hardest part for me, and Shawn and Pheobe can kind of attest, is sort of the changing of the mindset.
Sure.
And we had some long discussions where I was like, I need you to help me adjust my mind to making this change, and how it's, you know, as a prosecutor, we often referred to defense attorneys as the dark side. We would say, you know, the prosecutors, we wear the white hat, and
That's right.
the defense attorneys
Saviors of the world.
Right. And the other side was the dark side, you know, trying to get people off on a technicality. And after a lot of conversations, you know, I kind of came to the realization that as a defense attorney, I can continue to do many of the things I was doing as a prosecutor. Because as a prosecutor, I was helping to train prosecutors, trying to make them better at their job, trying to make sure they were seeking justice the right way, the ethical way. I also did a lot of training of police officers at the academy, and part of that was to make police officers better, to make sure they were following the rules and following laws. And so now I can keep doing that,
Sure.
and the way that I'm going to do that is by representing my clients and on occasion forcing cases to trial to make those prosecutors better prosecutors, to make those prosecutors follow the rules, to make those police officers follow the rules. It might be a little harder lesson for them this way than
Sure.
the way it used to be. But if I still use that sort of as part of my goal, is to make the system work and work the right way and work when I can for the benefit of my client, it's really doing the same thing.
That's a great way to say that. That's a lot better than the answer that you gave, Shawn. I asked Shawn why and I can't even, it was so impactful, I can't even remember what he said. But that was good. I like that. That was
I mean,
good.
they'll tell you, I was a little tormented at first and came to them and said, what am I going to do if we have a client who I know did something horrible and you know, we're fighting for them and we find some loophole and they walk away from this violent crime and these poor victims, you know, how am I going to handle that? And, you know, they helped me realize that is such a small percentage of what we do. The great majority of what we're doing is trying to help our client in their situation, to try to make it better for them, to try to make sure that they're treated fairly, to try to make sure that they get the best deal out of it. And occasionally one's going to come along that truly is innocent, and we're going to be the most prepared and experienced to handle that because of the vast experience that we have in all different areas.
Well, just seeing the experience that the three of you have in all the different areas. You have a lifer as far as Pheobe goes when it comes to defense, and you have two people that have been on both sides. I think that what you provide or what you could provide for somebody is extremely valuable, that you're not going to be able to see that and have that anywhere else with, I guess, for lack of a better word, an all-star team like you guys are. So, I mean, that's, for those of you who are out there and that are watching and listening, this is the cream of the crop. And I feel like that's adding Amanda to it just gives you that extra, sorry for the example, but bullet in the gun to really make it effective. And that's awesome. This is cool. I like this. I guess the only thing I have to ask you when it comes to changing from that side to going to this side, the husband.
Yeah.
How did the husband, when you go to your law enforcement husband and tell him this is what you're going to do, I can't imagine the response.
You know, he is 110% a police officer. There's no question about that.
Okay.
But he does have that business and banking and finance background that came well before
Yeah.
his police work, and he actually has a degree in economics.
Okay.
Okay. And so he gets the business part of it. He understands the aspect of trying to run a business and trying to generate money and provide for our family.
Yes.
And so it hasn't happened yet. I know it's going to happen at some point where we are going to strongly disagree
Yes.
and probably just have to agree not to talk about it at home.
Yes.
But so far, he's been, I think, actually a really good asset for the office because of his business knowledge
Oh, I can
and his
imagine.
finance
Absolutely.
knowledge. And so, cases are going to come along that I'm going to have to say, I can't handle this particular case and pass it off to Shawn or Pheobe. And that's fine. I know that going into it. I had to do the same thing at the DA's office. When I worked there as a prosecutor, I couldn't prosecute a case that he had handled. And so I think his overriding business mind will hopefully keep things relatively calm at home about it. I'm not sure what my kids are going to do because, I told you I have Kaylee, who's 12 now, and then Kennedy was a surprise while my husband was in police academy.
Yeah.
She's about to turn 6, and their mantra has always been, Daddy puts them in jail, Mommy keeps them there.
Okay.
And so we're going to have to come up with a new family saying to kind of fit what's going on now. But they don't completely get exactly what's going on.
Sure.
But they love the idea that, Mommy is her own boss and can come have lunch with them at school whenever she wants. And that was not
That's
something
cool.
easy to do when you work at, a government job.
That's cool. Well, I can tell you this. I'm sure I won't call them arguments, but very intense discussions that you and your husband have at night will be a lot different and more entertaining than me and my wife. When we're arguing about, I don't know, whatever it is that wife and husbands argue about, not people's lives and
Right.
those kinds of things. Having those discussions like that, that's cool. I can't imagine that dynamic, adding that to it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the face. She's like, yeah, we'll see how this
I
thing
just
goes.
know when he watches this, he's going to be like, I can't believe you said it that way. But
And I'm adding fuel to the fire. That's what makes it great what I'm doing. So this one, we're going to get you back in. So you've been on timeout long enough.
Are you sure about that?
No. Even though this won't be as entertaining now with him involved.
Kind of bring that atmosphere down a little
That's
bit.
right. That's right. We gotta do this now. So I will say this. Listening to the two of you discuss and talk about your reasons for wanting to get involved in law and all that is a lot more. It's a lot more genuine. I asked Shawn. I said, "Why do you want to getting into this thing?" And he's like, "I just want to make a lot of money." That's what he said. So I was just like, "Well, that's not very good reason." But y'all have genuine interest in helping people, and Shawn just want to make a lot of money. No, he didn't say that.
that's why we keep him around. That's right.
He didn't say that. It was good. See, what happens whenever y'all start doing this to each other is you start getting me doing it too.
Oh, no. Well, you started on her for the A&M stuff. So
Well,
I'm
that's
okay
true.
with it.
That's true.
I
But
think
then,
I changed his mind.
but then she came with the
Nah.
Cowboys, and
He's just being nice.
she came with the Cowboys, and so I'm okay with that. How do you get all your traveling around? How do you get up to be a Cowboys fan?
I'm a Cowboys fan by marriage.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's a good reason.
My husband and his family, my late father-in-law, my sister-in-law, die-hard Cowboys fans. So if I didn't become one, I wouldn't be part of the family.
I got you. Where's your husband from?
He actually moved all over Texas with oil and gas, but he graduated from high school in the Dallas area.
Okay. Well, there you go. So, what do you know at high school?
Allen High School.
Okay. Alan's good at high school football.
And he played football for Allen
He
High
did?
School. He did.
Okay. All right. And where did you say you're originally from?
Lindell.
That's
Lindell,
right.
Texas. Yep.
How big is Lindell?
When I
Now.
I think it's like 4,000 or 5,000 people. When I was there, it was 2,000.
2,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had one stoplight we had a 4-way stop and a Dairy Queen. So
All the small towns. I went to college, a junior college in Cisco, Texas. Do you know Cisco, Texas?
Mm-hmm.
They had a Dairy Queen and a Sonic right across the street from each other. That was it. That was what they had. But you know one of the things about Cisco, though? You know what's famous about Cisco? Very first Hilton hotel ever
Really?
put in the United States was Cisco, Texas.
Really?
I didn't
Absolutely.
know
Look
that.
it up. Look it up. Hilton Hotel started in Cisco, Texas. A little bitty small town out near Abilene. So just in case anybody cares to know about Cisco, Texas. But one of the things about the Panhandle, I always remember, I went and played games up there in the Panhandle. As soon as you start getting up there, and you tell me if you had this experience, you can just smell the cow shit everywhere.
That and where we were, you can smell the refineries.
Yes. I
Very
mean,
much.
it was immediate.
Yes.
Like as soon as you got in the general area of the Panhandle, manure just started wafting everywhere, and you could smell it, and it was terrible.
That's more like the West Texas. But then when
Yes.
you start going north, it's the refineries.
Yes.
we
Well,
all were in the Panhandle. I was in Abilene for a couple years.
No,
oh, you're in Abilene?
Uh-huh.
Abilene's not in the Panhandle.
It's close enough.
It's Panhandle-ish.
No, you
It's
don't
Panhandle-ish.
understand.
Look, it's north of Waco. That's the Panhandle.
No, that is West Texas. There is a difference between like Odessa, Midland, even Lubbock. That's West Texas. You go up, that's the Panhandle.
She was there a year and a half, and she's a Panhandle
I
expert.
know.
I am.
It's that A&M education.
That's
Yep.
right.
Sure is.
I'm gonna have to get you about that A&M education. I can't help it.
I'm used to it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Okay. All right. Well, and you know what? She should be the one doing it because she actually went to UT. I'm just a on the
A
border.
wannabe?
Yeah. There you go. You can do that. You can do that. That's fine. You can say a wannabe. That's all right. That's all right. So this has been fun.
It has
I've
been.
I've enjoyed this. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you've gotten the information out there that you're hoping as far as about yourself, because I think the stories that each one of you have is integral to getting your names out there. Because when you think about attorneys, like your father, I'm sure told you, is you have these certain images of attorneys, and to be able to see how you are personally, and not in an advertisement and doing standing on top of a 18-wheeler and saying exactly. It gives you that personal experience with somebody, even though you haven't met them, you feel like you know something about them. So is there anything, I'll just kind of go around here with the three of you, starting with Shawn. What are your thoughts about what we're doing here, what you guys are doing? What are you hoping to get out there to the folks so that they know?
I think ultimately for me, it's forming relationships and with clients more than anything in what we do, because they are putting a lot of trust in us.
Mm-hmm.
And these big cases, I want them to appreciate the amount of time and effort we put into these cases as we're prepping them for trial. I mean, it's countless hours of us sitting around and working these cases, and that our clients don't see the behind the scenes work that we do,
Mm-hmm.
and pouring our heart and soul and taking these cases home with us, and talking strategy. And that's what makes, I think, this group so wonderful at what we do, is we bring a different perspective to these cases that helps us think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, that benefits our clients. And that's what I originally enjoyed about Pheobe and now Amanda coming on board, is having the ability to discuss these cases, and everybody brings something beneficial to the table every single time we talk about the case. In a different perspective, and it just helps us represent these clients and do the best we can. I mean, they're placing a lot of trust in us, and we don't take that lightly.
Amanda, what is your? I know you've been doing it for a short time now, but from what you've seen?
It kind of goes hand in hand with what Shawn said, is that when a client walks in our doors, it's very different than most criminal defense attorneys in our area, because they're solo practitioners. And while they can certainly do a great job for their client, for our clients, when they walk in, they will have the collaboration of all three of us. Even if it's a case that's mine, that's not necessarily Shawn's client, we're still going to be able to collaborate and bounce ideas off of each other and take our combined experience, which I think when we added it up, we're nearly 60 years total experience in criminal law. And that's not anything else anyone in this county can do for a client, somebody facing criminal charges at whatever stages it may be. If it's early on, if it's going to trial, between the three of us, they're going to have unmatched experience and representation because of our experience.
Okay. Phoebe, what do you have to add to that?
I guess I'll just kind of everything they've said, but also, when there probably isn't anything scarier in this world than someone trying to take away your freedom. I mean, if you don't have that, you don't have anything.
Sure.
You don't have family. You don't have, not the, can you imagine not being able to touch somebody you love?
Sure.
And when I think about that, it makes me very fiercely protective of them. And I have always believed that when somebody comes into my life as a, you know, as their lawyer, then there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get everything that I've got, you know. And that doesn't always mean cases that go to trial, but that means that we try to resolve the problem, you know, the best that we can, and to some solution that they can live with, you know. I mean, there's always the times that we have to take it to the mat, and we do have to fight, and that's, you know, that's very scary. And I have to stand back and admire the courage it takes for a client to go to trial sometimes, because that's a pretty awesome thing to face a jury of your peers, you know, when maybe you could just back out and take a deal if you wanted. Yeah. So I think it's those things that kind of get me up in the morning and keep me going, keep me thinking about our clients. I mean, I know none of us turn it off at night. You know, even if you try, you're spending time with your family or whatever, you know, the wheels are still going on at the back.
Right.
And
I can imagine how difficult it is to leave it somewhere. I mean, after you've invested whatever time and energy and emotion and into something, and just to go, okay, I'm done with that. I can't imagine. I can think that's pretty difficult.
Yeah, Shawn and I, we tried a case, I don't know, probably about 6 months ago, and we were both laughing because the next day I'm like, you know, we get back to work and I'm like, I tried that case like 4 times in my sleep last night, you know, and it's just, this is what you do. I mean, it just doesn't, it doesn't stop necessarily.
Right. Well, it's, what you guys do is, I just want people to understand and know that a defense attorney is not a person that gets off criminals. And I think sometimes, especially what you were saying, that you have that, the black hat mentality and the white hat mentality, and the savior and the person that's defending this person, and there's a lot more to that. There's a lot more to that, and I know I'm not telling y'all something you don't already know, but that's what I hope to come of this, is that people understand that there is another side to it. There is a background to whatever this person's going through and doing, and you guys are there to make sure that, like you said, holding everybody accountable for what they're doing in this process.
For me, even the worst people in our society have a story, and there needs to be somebody there to tell their story. It may not be a good story, it may not be a pretty story, but when you're deciding someone's freedom and putting someone away potentially for the rest of their life, I just hope as a society we don't lose sight of that person does deserve to be heard.
Right.
And to make sure that we make the right decisions. May be life in prison. It may be. It happens all the time for us, and we struggle with that. But we want to make sure that their story is told. Right. And that's important, I think, for us.
And that's what I look forward to future shows to discuss all kinds of things. DWI law, assault, battery. We're talking about gun laws, drug laws. I'd even like to sit down and talk to you guys at some point about the death penalty, and just talk about all that, because that's a hot button topic. I mean, lots of people have a lot of opinions about it, and I have my own, and questions and things like that. So for those that are listening and watching, this is the tip of the iceberg as far as what we're doing and getting to know this group. And I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be fun, and I hope everybody continues to tune in. So, thank you guys.
Thanks,
Shawn.
Grant.
Thank you.
Appreciate
These
it,
are.
Thank you.
I see why you got them.
Absolutely.
These are smart, tough, talented ladies. You're a lucky man.
I agree.
Good to meet y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Nice meeting you.
absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk to y'all again.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
All right. Thank y'all.
See ya.